Let's go through the full grid. It's Greg Hovesen on pole position ahead of his teammate Nikolai Pedersen in second place. Joop de Vos in third, and then Balázs Erdely starts in fourth position. Andrea Pagnini up in fifth. Danny Neo in sixth. He got that late one in there, I think, because David Bozga, the championship leader, starts in seventh position ahead of Mihai Neg, Ryan Woodrow, and Caden Richardson rounding out the top 10. Luciano Witvoet, our Silverstone race winner, goes from 11th position, and it's Comrade Kula, Alexander Paulik, Cody Cosford, the Scotsman, down in 14th position, Kyle Domark, and Federico Alberti, and Igor Kos, after his little punt off in qualifying, he rounds out the rear of the 17-car field. Jeremy, it's 50 minutes of racing, one mandatory pit stop to come. Again, the order looking quite different, but I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to see some games being played by the two teammates up at the front, as we've seen in qualifying.
We'll see what happens. You know, it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers work together to at least get to that first pit stop. Now, if you're new to watching racing here at Daytona, you're going to have to really commit to pitting off of NASCAR 4, which you're going to be having drivers behind you with a full head of steam. And of course, getting into that pit is going to be absolutely difficult as well, because once again, you're full speed and you're kind of coming off a little bit of banking to get onto pit road. So that's going to be interesting. Pit out's going to be interesting, especially for drivers on the track. Did get the driver's briefing, and according to our race director, there's no cutting the white line on pit entry. Stay in the fast lane until you get to your pit box. If you're on track and cut the pit exit line and impede a driver leaving the pit lane, this will result in a penalty. And what they're talking about is that dotted white line that's right there, right by the pit out. If you cross that and cut another driver off, that's going to be a penalty for you, and you definitely don't want to be doing that. But it is an all-Ford front row here with Hovesen and Pedersen 1 and 2.
Yes, very handy that the two cars with identical liveries are locking up the front row here, so apologies if we get the two confused. We'll try to remember that it is Greg Hovesen who will line up on the inside, as it were. It will be the right-hand side as we look at it from the TV cameras. And the number 5 car, the Canadian, who will lead the way, former engineer for Exclusive Autosports in Northern America. The third round of the Crown Racing Series about to get underway. 50 minutes of racing at the Daytona International Speedway. 17 GT3 cars with 3 points separating the top 3 in the championship. The pace car peels off to driver's left. It's the two Fords up at the front of the field. Greg Hovesen and Nikolai Pedersen will lead them into turn 1 as the race for the crown continues in Daytona. Green flag is waved, and the two Fords pull away very nicely. It's a bit of an advantage for Hovesen going into the first corner. Joop de Vos just manages to chop the nose of Balázs Erdely there and keep his Porsche up in third position. Everybody very cleanly for the first couple of corners. A bit of hopping over the curbs, but no major dramas as we make our way into the International Horseshoe for the first time of asking. I spoke too soon because off the road goes the championship leader, David Bozga, in the number 6 Ferrari, in the wall and out of contention.
He was
and another one going off as we head towards the Western Horseshoe. That's the worst possible place to have an accident, because you can so easily wipe out the rest of the field. And I think that we actually managed to get away without the number 7 machine of Mihai Neg wiping out the rest of the field. So after a very well-behaved first couple of corners, dramas ensuing further into the lap.
Yeah, Comrade Kula now spun off at turn number 6, so he'll get back underway. But David Bozga, what a horrible start for his race. He was side by side with Danny Neo there, and of course that was ended in tears coming off of the International Horseshoe. But look at this: Hovesen, Pedersen 1 and 2, then Joop de Vos also closing in. De Vos tried to get into that second place, and he's still itching to get up one more spot and kind of break up this Mustang party as they work their way through NASCAR 3 and 4. We'll hang here for a bit because I think that we might see De Vos try something if Pedersen does not take his inside line, and indeed they are going to do tight as you see the 5 and the 42 hook up nice and tight coming down the start line, and it's Hovesen, Pedersen, and De Vos 1, 2, 3, and they're going to stay line astern as they go into the infield section, as still Pagnini into the pits as well to fix some sort of damage.
Yeah, so the second of the Porsches in, the number 99 coming in. I did see some bodywork going off the racetrack. I don't think it was from Pagnini's car, but he's come in with some other issue. But look at these three cars, the two NGK Sparkplug cars leading the Joop de Vos machine. We're going to see what happened to Pagnini here, and maybe this is related to the off we saw for Konrad Kula. Oh, Kula just lit it up on his own. Pagnini had cars going either side of him as they came onto the banking section at NASCAR turns 1 and 2. But yeah, okay, so we didn't quite see where Pagnini ended up picking up his damage. Maybe this is part of it. No, there was, oh god, there was more. That's the Pagnini one, because Domark was having his own incident, and then someone else, didn't quite catch who that was, but that is where Pagnini picked up his damage.
And big problems as David Bozga is completely out of this race. So it took only 3 turns for our points leader to run into trouble, and we will not see him back out onto the circuit. So a shame for the driver, the number 6. Go back to the racing action where 1, 2, 3 are just close together. You see Relive there in 4th place. He's got the interested spectator as we're finally going to see this Bozga replay. And you see right there, dives to the inside. Might have been an inopportune moment, but he forced his way through, and he just basically acts like the Porsche's not even there. So I think that was the start of Pagnini's problems right there, is that contact, just running across, doing damage, and yeah, loses traction there for behind Neg, and then just gets tapped. It looks like Ryan Woodrow was the unfortunate benefactor of that one.
For the second race in a row, the championship leader will score no points in a race. You could not make this stuff up. Extraordinary championship drama once again. Of course, that puts Nikolai Pedersen, the second place car at the moment, second place in the championship, in the pound seat. But he's got to be wary of Joop de Vos behind him. And of course, Balázs Erdely, they are both inside the top 4 in the championship. Greg Hovesen still in a competitive spot there as well. 25 points to his name after the first 2 rounds, so about 29 behind the championship leader, but that will change a lot after this race, you would think. Still, those 2 Fords are running absolutely line astern and working so well together. I'm sure he's got every confidence that Pedersen is not going to mount a challenge on him unless he feels like Joop de Vos is going to pass him. But it's bringing Erdely and Danny Neo as well, the Spaniard in the Mercedes, the walk racing driver. We've got 3 of those, in fact, in the Ford Mustang. Sorry, it's the black and purple of those 3 Mustangs. And this is the best performance we've seen of Danny Neo so far. In fact, was inside the top 10 just in Fuji. It's the first time he's finished inside the top 10 in the Crown Racing Series, and here he is. He can see the leaders from where he is, and he can see them not going side by side into turn 1, because this is some tactical play here from the 2 Fords.
Chris, I think we're at the point in the race now where it's like, okay, we want to get to the first pit stop and then make something happen. There's Luciano Witvoet sitting in 6th place right now. His, of course, fastest lap of the race right now by Danny Neo, 43.167. as they work their way off of the International Horseshoe. But here's the thing, with these drivers all drafting off each other, it's only going to be a matter of time before Luciano catches up to the back of this 5-car train and going to make it a 6-car train. And I think it might happen here as you come around the, come off of the road course onto the banking and really catch up as well. But man, he's really lighting up those rear tires coming off the horseshoes.
He was the Silverstone race winner, came to Fuji as the championship leader, had a hit from Ryan Woodrow going into the first corner in Fuji, and he ended up scoring no points, did the Dutchman, but now he has a chance to close in on his championship rivals once again. Currently 2.9 seconds behind that train of cars that are fighting for the lead, with Danny Neo at the back of it, but I have no doubt that the Ferrari will close in and put the prancing horse in the fight for this victory. Up 5 places from his starting position is Luciano Witvoet as we ride on board with the Dollywood Corvette of Ryan Woodrow, the number 44 machine, which is 2 cars back, and looking at the back of Caden Richardson as well, the number 82 Mercedes, the sole AMG on the grid, making the way down the banking. And even from this distance, you're still getting a little bit of a tow.
you are getting a little bit of a toe. And of course, now we're starting to see this stage in the race, which I had a feeling was going to happen. Fuel saving. So we're going to try and see how long it takes for drivers to get out there and go into the pits. I have a feeling that 15 minutes to go, that might be the go time. However, I think that the pit window probably will open for some opportunists in the next 10 minutes or so to get that early, and then they have to go all the way. But then again, they've got to do a heck of a lot of fuel saving to get that done. There's second place driver Pedersen out of Denmark as he's closing in on Hovesen. But then again, they're trying to hook up together and get out of the way so that way they can race. But DeVos, Erdelai, and Neo, they will not let them get away as they've opened up a 3-second gap to Witvoet. So not much racing right now, but it's a lot of fuel saving, trying to get away and get something done here in this early part of the race.
Speaking of fuel saving, surely Hovesen's got to be doing the most of it out there, because he is the only one in this lead pack with no tow, no slipstream. And so Pedersen's going to be saving a massive amount of fuel in situations like this, because he can lift off so much earlier and save some fuel and not lose too much speed. DeVos, you'd think, would be in a great position as well. Remember, the Fords is one of the thirstier cars out there, so you'd think DeVos is probably in a better position. Two fewer cylinders in that Porsche, of course, the rear-engined straight-six Porsche versus the front-engined big thumping Coyote V8 in the Mustang. And so that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out as the Porsche gets right up to the back of the two Fords at the front of the field. DeVos, trying to make up for the disappointment of the post-race penalty, was the winner on the road in Fuji. And I'm sure getting the news that he lost that win would have been about as disappointing as the Wicked sequel.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, but still, DeVos had a great race there in Fuji, and I think he's trying to capitalize and make sure that the series knows that he's still here to play with just a couple of races left to go in this short season, as going through the kink and heading into the West Horseshoe. DeVos, he's calculated, he's fast, he's smart, so no surprise that he's sitting back there in third, waiting to see if Hovesen and Pedersen decide to break out, fight each other once again or not. And I'm going to say this, with Witvoet, he's losing a little bit of that. Again, he doesn't have any drafting help. Closest drafting help he may have here shortly are Caden Richardson and Ryan Woodrow. We'll see if these two, who are coming off of turn 6 now, can make something happen, hook up to maybe have a 3-car train that catches up to the back of the 5-car lead pack. Igor Kos sitting there in 9th spot. He's your highest climber so far, up 8 spots from his grid spot. So that Mustang's working pretty good and kind of gives the feeling of, yeah, qualifying's great. Let's see what happened here on lap 1 with Igor Kos. And
look at that, he's hanging back.
Yeah, he's hanging back, so we'll see. Ooh, this may not be looking good for him in post-race as the green flag comes out. He may be, well, he might get these legally. Yeah, he could be fine, actually.
Well, it started from the back of the grid, did the 37-year-old German engineer, qualified for the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Deutschland in its first year of competition. And he's proving why he was able to do so. He's made up 8 places so far. So great stuff from another of the Fords. He's got a good view of the chaos that ensued. Of course, keeping his nose clean, that's probably the first and most important thing when starting at the rear of the field. And, did have an off-track excursion there through the dogleg, heading towards the Western Horseshoe, but managed to get away with it, and crucially avoiding the car that was rejoining at high speed as well. And so running very well in 9th position at the moment is Igor Kos. As just in front of them, Cody Cosford, who's made his way inside the top 10. Just in front of Mihai Neg, another of the Walk Racing drivers. And Conrad Kula on the recovery from his first lap spin, getting past Federico Alberti there as well. Alexander Porlock, the other car in that scuffle. And just looking at the time, the lead gap opening out there a little bit to about 1/4 of a second.
I say, how about a birdie sitting back there in 14th? You know, he hung back all the way at the start, and then now made his way up 2 spots, trying to go 3 around Alexander Pollock for that 13th spot as he dives down to the inside for the Le Mans chicane. Almost the International Horseshoe goes a little wide. I think he was a little fast through there. Holy cow! The bonnet on Pollock's car is absolutely gone.
Potentially the result of some of the first lap calamities. Yeah, we can see, even as dark as it is, quite a significant bit of bodywork missing from the number 32 Castrol Ferrari of Alexander Pollock, the 37-year-old from Leipzig in Germany, running in 13th position as it stands. So back with the leaders then, still that great train of cars. Still it is 5 for the lead, with Luciano Witvoet actually losing ground to this leading pack. Now 4 seconds back from Danny Neo at the back of this queue. So whatever it is these guys are doing, it's working out very nicely at the moment. Still Greg Hovesen leading. Are we going to see a swap at some point between these 2 cars to allow Hovesen to catch up on the fuel saving that he's, I'm sure, missing out on, as he doesn't have the toe and hasn't had the toe for this entire race? Still Pedersen pushing him along in the higher speed sections of the racetrack. And everyone's really playing ball here. You would almost expect one of them to just say, nah, I'm going to stuff out the inside at some point.
It's not going to happen right away because you don't want to make enemies this early in the race. Maybe later on, once we get closer to the end of that 50 minutes, I think that's when you're going to start to see drivers decide to play on their own. But I don't know if these Fords are going to really play on their own. I think they might just last 1-2, because you take a look at their point standings right now. You've got Pedersen, who's sitting in second place. So if he finishes second, he's going to get a good points position to get him back up to the points lead. But at this point, I don't know if I want that points lead, because it seems like the points leaders the past couple of races have had nothing but issues befalling them early on in the race. But then again, Hovesen is looking to gain more points. He's sitting 8th with 25 points. So this could be huge for the Canadian right now.
But the curse of the championship leader could make the final round at Interlagos quite interesting, couldn't it, if we keep that going throughout the season. Interesting to see Joop de Vos there, the sole Porsche in amongst the sea of Fords, and Joop de Vos joining a new team since we left Fuji, now with Team Alta, from moving from the Aerokinetics team, but still in the same familiar grey and yellow colours we've seen him out in the first 2 rounds. On board here with the 22-year-old Dutchman, soaking up the slipstream of the 2 Fords in front of him and opening up the taps on the 4.2 litre flat 6 in the rear of that car. Still the previous generation of the Porsche, and the 992.2 has made its global debut. That's this still the what is now the previous generation of that car, as it closes up again as we come around turns 3 and 4 on the oval section, across the stripe to complete lap number 9, and De Vos again closing up but not choosing to pounce by the looks of it. There is a gap on the inside. He chooses not to take it as they break in towards turn 1.
Of course, the De Vos fan club sitting and watching here on the Crown Racing Series YouTube channel. Mihai Neg trying to hold off Cody Cosford as Cosford looks to the outside, going to think better of it around turn number 1. And I think that right now everybody's just trying to find their dance partner, get through to the first pit stop, and then the game will be afoot. But still not many battles to be run here, with Mihai Neg and Cody Cosford sitting in 10th and 11th. And of course, you got the 5-car train that's trying to open up a gap, and they have opened up a huge gap. It's about 4.5 seconds back to Witvoet. Andrea Pagnini back on track. It took him about a lap to get those repairs done, and that Porsche is flying. Last time by, his fastest lap of the race, 43.761. So whatever the crew did, they were able to get that back out and underway. However, I think at this point, it's just run as many laps as you can and hope for more fall off to get higher in the standings.
And of course, you do still collect points, even if you are down in 16th position, so it is worth staying out there as long as you complete 50% of the race distance. So it is worth doing. And we have had that change for the lead. The two Fords have swapped round. Nikolai Pedersen now leads the way from Greg Hovesen. Now, I'm sure that would have been some form of coordinated move there so that Hovesen can now catch up on the fuel saving and benefit from the tow. Of course, they will have had to coordinate that so carefully not to allow Wout de Vos to go through as well, but they have managed to pull it off. But is this the sign? Is that the first sign of racing starting to happen between these 5 cars?
Yeah, I think it really is, because you know, no surprise, it was only a matter of time before Hovesen decided, you know what, I'm done pulling you guys. Let's do some swapperoos, and that really helps out to have somebody you're familiar with decide to make that pass. And we're actually going to see that right here, and that's going to be in the entry to the Le Mans chicane. You see Pedersen closing in and taking that swap there, using the draft to his effect. And yeah, look at that. De Vos thought, oh, I could get in there and try and get the lead in second place. No, he cannot, as Hovesen shuts the door on him just as Pedersen gets up to the point. So and other than those two, looking pretty good.
So back onto the banking then for the leaders. I love watching that live gap just shrink and shrink as they come down there. Just a few hundredths of a second between them as they're absolutely nose to tail. The bump draft well in effect here. And it's working out so well for them, because you see no one else has had a run-in on these 2 cars so far. Wonderful team tactics being played here, running it up to the yellow line all the way around the banking as they come round turns 3 and 4 on the oval section. 19 minutes into this race, and we've had the swap between the front 2 as they start to put the hammer down just a little bit more. It's still Danny Neo with the fastest lap of the race, that 1:43.167 that he set in the early stages there, and still just waiting at the back of this queue patiently for it all to kick off a little bit later. I think the advantage of pitting later does mean you will have a slightly shorter stop, but you do sort of slightly run the risk of getting involved in some squabbles, or maybe losing out a little bit on the colder tyres as everyone is already out there on hot tyres. You don't have to put new rubber on in the stop. It is up to your discretion. Of course, you can have fresher rubber, but you do have to go through that warm-up phase.
Takes about a lap to get warmed up here at Daytona. Of course, looking at the track and ambient temps, it's about 20 degrees ambient, 20 degrees ambient, 20 degrees trackside temps. So either way, it's about the same temperature. It's not going to take too long for these cars to get up to speed. Caden Richardson has opened up a little bit of a gap, lost a gap, I should say, to Ryan Woodrow. So that race has kind of died off. We're also been watching this battle for 10th. Cody Cosford did get around Mihai Neg, so I have a feeling there's going to be a little bit more fuel saving there. Neg deciding to just sit back and watch what happens. And you see, you got 2 close battles for position as we take a look at that pass heading into the international. Actually, no, that's not going to be it, as they're still nose to tail. Yeah, that's Neg sitting back there behind Cosford.
Cody Cosford's the 20-year-old Scotsman, and this is how the pass happened, it would seem, coming out of the Le Mans chicane. Oh, it was a big hop over the curbing for Mihai Neg, and that's what we were talking about there, because that's opened up the door, that reprofiled curbing that's new for this year at Daytona. And we've seen Mihai Neg be probably, I think that's the first time we've seen that really cost someone in one of these laps. And of course, you've got to wonder if that's done any further damage to the underside of the car, as we've got the first cars coming into pit lane now.
Conrad Kula looks like he might have been too fast entering, as he has received a black flag. And this is what I was talking about. You know, you got these drivers who are near the back, might as well go in, get the opportune pit stop time, and run a little bit of pit strategies. We're watching the replay out of Conrad Kula, the Ferrari making his way off of turn number 4. Oh, that's actually a little bit early if you ask me, to come down, because now you got an unsettled car and heavy on the brakes. I think he might have been just a little too fast because he was coming in way too hot through there, and or could be also, remember we mentioned you got to stay in the fast lane for a while, and it looks like he was straddling that fast and slow lane, so that may have been the cause of the black flag as well.
I think if he's triggered the black flag from iRacing's race control, then I think it's more likely to be the pit lane speeding. We do have a set of independent stewards who will look at any incidents post-race as well. The leaders continue on for another lap. The top three starting to break away a little bit from Balash Erdely and Danny Neo, but still only a couple of car lengths between them. We've still very much got to think about them, and in fact, as we go on board with Erdely, the gap almost feels like nothing at all, making our way back into the International Horseshoe, coming up to half race distance as well pretty soon. 23 minutes into this race. It's Pedersen from Hovesen, De Vos, Erdely and Neo still your top five, as Alexander Paulik now comes into pit lane as well, the number 32 Ferrari.
Sherman hits his mark, says the car will get the new bonnet on there. So he gets that magically put on. So perfect timing as Domar goes up to 12th place in the standings for the time being. We'll see how long that this pit stop happens. There is the American in the orange, black, and white Mustang as he works his way around the International Horseshoe. And Paulik out and away 21 seconds. So, Chris, I think what we're going to see is we're going to see anywhere from 21 to 22 seconds for a full-service pit stop. Obviously, the closer we get to that 50-minute mark, then we're going to start to see shorter and shorter pit stops.
Yeah, 20.9 for Alberti, 21.5 for Paulik. Annoyingly, don't have the times for the other drivers because we've only had two in so far. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong column on the timing screen. So top three about to cross the stripe again. That's the closest they've been. I'm in absolute awe of how they've managed to pull this off lap after lap after lap and not somehow take each other out. I mean, to be running that close for that long, incredible stuff. As we see Caden Richardson bring his car into pit lane, the 22-year-old from Nevada. A new team for him as well, the Ares Racing team now, as we watch this top five continue to knock seven bells out of each other, and now coming up to half race distance. So who's into pit lane now? Mihai Neg and Igor Kos also into pit lane as well. And being told that Caden Richardson is taking tyres as well in this stop. So I think that interestingly, hasn't added too much time to the stationary time, because that was still 21 and a half seconds stationary for him. So that's bang on the money of what we've seen everyone else. So either everyone's taking tyres or taking tyres isn't costing people too much.
It's not going to cost people too much at all, as Domark is into the pits right now. So Richardson, your front runner of those who have pitted, but I don't think with the Delta that's going to be enough to keep him up there. We'll see when this group comes in. Pedersen, Hovesen, De Vos, 1, 2, and 3, and Erdely and Neo caught up to the back of De Vos. So they're within drafting distance right now, but it's almost like that these two cars have a magnet, and now the Mustangs decide that it's their time to pit. Does anyone have a speeding penalty? Because I think that did I hear no penalties? No penalties. Wow. So Pedersen and Hovesen, I tell you what, they came in pretty quick there, Chris. I thought that we were going to have some sort of issue, but now all the Mustangs are into the pit road with Witvoet and Woodrow behind them. Cosford also taking the pits.
It's fascinating stuff. Joop De Vos, the only driver of that top five group to stay out for an extra lap. So he's still running out there on hot tyres. And this is what we were talking about. The Fords are a little bit more thirsty. So the Porsche's been able to stay out for a little bit longer. That should, in theory, mean it is a slightly shorter stop for De Vos when he comes in probably a few laps time. No change in the order though between the two leading Fords, the two cars sponsored by NGK spark plugs from the Apex Racing squad. Interestingly, the good thing here is because you can drive through your opponent's car, you haven't got to do, say, what we saw Porsche do at the Rolex 24 this year, where you swap your drivers so that they don't have to go around each other in the pits when you bring them in together, paying the price of your cars being so fast and so equally matched, but not a problem here. So Joop de Vos in the lead in clean air, now unleashed. And we've seen straight away 2 green sectors being set from him. He is putting the hammer down straight away.
We'll see how the overcut works for him. You see this battle for 9th now between Mihai Neg and Cosford. Remember, they were battling for 10th a little bit earlier on, so they have leapfrogged their way up 1 position each. And now Joop de Vos comes down off the track, and it is time for his compulsory pit stop. How long will it take for him to catch up to the field? And of course, more importantly, will they follow the special rules that were set for them for this race? The Porsche of de Vos was 40 seconds in the good here. He comes down to his pit stop, and Chris, let's see if he takes tires or if he just goes for fuel. The car does not come up off the jacks. It's going to be it's just going to be fuel only.
Yeah, fuel only for de Vos. One thing to mention as well, Danny Neo jumped Balázs Erdely in that pit stop sequence as well. It was 2 seconds stationary longer for Erdely, so that's what has allowed Neo to take what should be a net 4th position in this race. Here comes Joop de Vos. Where are the 2 Fords he was racing? He has been able to go out there for that extra lap on board with Pedersen as he comes round the first corner. Where is the Porsche? It's going to be just in front of them, but not by much at all, I would suspect. And yes, he's now into the International Horseshoe, and de Vos has been able to jump both of those 2 cars in the pit stop sequence, but his tires are going to be a little bit cooler. They're not new, but they will have cooled down in the pits, whereas the 2 Fords behind them will be up to speed and up to temperature, and so that gap may well close down. But the important thing is that Joop de Vos has got track position here.
And Chris, the gap in pit time between de Vos and Pedersen, about 2 seconds. De Vos with a 17.6, 19.0 out of Pedersen. Hovesen with a 19.5. So that 1.5, 2 seconds right now on track means about 1.5, 2 seconds on the circuit. So fantastic pit strategy by de Vos as he is trying to reclaim the win that was taken away from him at Fuji, as he's opened up a lead. But here's the thing. Those leads don't last that long here at Daytona like that, especially when you have drivers behind you who are in a draft. They work their way through the Le Mans chicane as, yeah, Pedersen and Hovesen once again. Oh, a little bit of a wiggle out of Hovesen out of that chicane, out of that last part of the chicane, and that chicane bites, but thankfully this time Hovesen didn't get too much air.
A nice save there from Hovesen. I was just starting to wonder how these 2 are going to start to play it now. Will they keep working together to try and close down de Vos, or does one think they're slightly quicker? That stationary time from Joop de Vos, that is the quickest that anybody has had. Now, of course, he was the last car to come in. That's a little bit of help there because less fuel being needed. But yeah, part of that as well is just good strategy from Joop de Vos as well. So he's really made the difference there, jumping 2 cars in the pit stop sequence. What have we got further back? Mihai Neg and Cody Cosford still nose to tail. Mihai Neg now back ahead of the Ferrari of Cosford in 9th position. So I think they've swapped around once again, in fact, so they get very close together in the braking zone for the first corner. This
battle's going to be going on all race long. It's absolutely fantastic to see these 2 neck and neck. Of course, Mihai Neg right now in the points, sitting about 13th with Cosford in 12th, and they've got a handful of points apart from each other. So this is kind of good. It's not necessarily going to be a battle of who's going to be finishing where in points, but still, you got 12th and 13th in points right now. 9th and 10th, 10th and 9th on the track.
Out of the Western Horseshoe, still the Mercedes in front. This is the race leader, Joop de Vos. Big jump over the curb there as well, certainly more than the 2 chasing Fords that still run absolutely nose to tail and still about 1.5 seconds back from the race leader. So the pace is incredibly equal out there. We can see the progression on this lap so far between the two fours, but there's just absolutely nothing between them as always. And we can see, look at that, DeVos in clean air has started to really put the hammer down in terms of the lap times.
Chris, I did see in our timing screen that Kyle Delmark had an off track and then took a tow into the pits. He is right now in the pits trying to fix some sort of damage, and there we go. We actually have the replay. Let's see, and it's got to be in turn one, which is extremely tough. Doesn't matter what you're driving. Turn one is absolutely one of the most difficult corners here in motorsports, and goes off course and just slides off. So something happened there to the American to just lose it. Might have been a mechanical failure, but either way, still in the pits trying to fix the damage to the car.
Yeah, well, didn't hit anything in that off-track excursion. So I do wonder what the cause for towing rather than just rejoining the racetrack was. But this is the battle for fourth position. We said Danny Neo was able to jump Balázs Erdely in the pit lane. He was stationary for a couple of seconds less than the Hungarian, but Erdely still eager for that fourth place spot. They've fallen back from the lead pack though. They're now 4 and a bit seconds behind Hovesen and Pedersen, for example. And so breaking into the Le Mans chicane now, and this could be an opportunity for Erdely here as Neo's got it a little bit crossed up coming through the chicane, and that was an open invitation for him, and he's gone through quite easily, in fact, and retakes that fourth place spot. More crucial points for the man who was third in the championship going into this race.
A fantastic move there to capitalize on Danny Neo's mistakes as he sits now in fourth place. Remember, these two were also on the back of that 5-car train here not too long ago, but Pedersen and Hovesen have closed in a couple of tenths on Joop de Vos. We've got about 20 a handful of minutes left. I'd say more than 15 minutes, but you see there on the bottom part of your screen, that is the gap that keeps closing and closing and closing ever so slightly.
Yeah, 16 minutes left on the clock, so plenty of time for this to shake out still. And those two Fords have closed the gap down slightly. I know I mentioned it at the start of the race as well, but having those two identically liveried cars run so close together for the entire race is pretty much my worst nightmare up here in Coventry. But I don't think we've misnamed either of them so far. Remember, we do have our post-race show as well, where we'll hear from as many drivers as we can get a hold of. That is going to be on a separate stream here on YouTube. So just keep an eye on the Crown Racing Series channel to see that. It won't be on this specific stream as they make their way out of the Le Mans chicane. Again, plenty of sparks flying, and this is the change of position here. Pedersen yielding the spot to Hovesen. So now it's up to Greg Hovesen to try and close down the gap to Joop de Vos.
Actually, that was a slowdown penalty that Pedersen got cutting one of the chicanes. So definitely don't want to have that happen, especially that late in the race, because now Hovesen on his own to try and catch de Vos. So that's absolutely something that the 69 needed to see and hear, that one of your closest rivals had to get penalized.
Yeah, so that is the first off-track excursion for Nikolai Pedersen in this race, and very wisely just taking it up to the high side of the banking, not impeding his teammate in any way. And 1.5 seconds, I mean, that is by far and away the biggest gap we've seen between the two teammates all race long. And we can see the moment again here for Pedersen, and again those reprofiled curves. I mean, it didn't look obviously like a cut, but I guess the margins are so fine.
Yeah, it didn't look that egregious, to be honest with you, but you know, when the sensors go, okay, you're over the line, you're over the line. Doesn't matter if you're 2 over the line or 4 over the line, you have to stay off those lines. Thankfully, we haven't seen anybody get that slowdown penalty going into turn 1, because everybody playing nice and clean through there. And this is the battle for 6th place, as Ryan Woodrow has reeled in Witvoet, the earlier points leader and your Silverstone winner, as the Corvette, I should say, Still trying to make some headway, up 2 positions on this race so far. Witvoet up to 5 positions as well, so plenty of time left to make something happen. We'll see if Woodrow wants to stay in there and kind of stay close to Witvoet and try to get up more positions. But it's going to be tough, to say the least, because now everybody's all strung out. There's only 2 distinct draft packs. There's this one and the Cosford neg draft pack for 9th place. So unless somebody gets a wheel off or goes spinning, this is basically what we're going to see gap-wise throughout the rest of the race. But it's still going to be pretty interesting to see Woodrow pulling in Witvoet, but not going to make it happen through turn 1.
And there is history between these 2 drivers. They are the 2 who made contact in Fuji when Luciano Witvoet was trying to come up the order. Woodrow speared into the side of him, and Witvoet, who was the championship leader going into that race, ended up not scoring any points at all. And now they are meeting each other on the track once again. Woodrow, who's not had the best of starts to his time in the Crown Racing Series, although did manage to bag a top 5 finish in the end after penalties were applied in Fuji. So all things considered, still a good haul of points as we rejoin that Cosford and Neg battle, which has swapped over again with the young Scotsman back through into 9th position.
Still looking pretty good so far. We'll see if they decide to play a little bit of draft help here as we're approaching the 10-minute mark to go. And of course, at that point, all bets are going to be off. You see DeVos now 1.1 seconds ahead of Hovesen. I have a feeling that Greg has something up his sleeve, getting in that toolbox and trying to find something that he's going to be able to use here in these last couple laps. Of course, DeVos last time by 0.2 of a second slower than Hovesen on the track, and really Hovesen lost his drafting partner after that slowdown penalty. So we'll see what the Canadian has. He was your pole sitter, and he's pretty quick here.
Matching each other to the 10th last time around, though, so the gap staying around 1.2 seconds. Interestingly, their best laps in this race as well are equally close. 43.3 for DeVos, 43.3 for Hovesen, and they're still pushing like hell up there as well. 43.4 and 43.4 last time around for both DeVos and Hovesen. So the pace is hot at the moment and super tight between these 2 drivers. So you'd have to think it's advantage DeVos, who will take his 2nd win on the road, but his first, assuming there are no post-race penalties. We've had no unsafe rejoins, no additional off-track excursions. The top 2 at the moment have had 0 incident points, I think, so far. Certainly in terms of off-tracks, there might be a couple for contacts, bearing in mind how much bump drafting we saw in the first half of the race. But so far it's looking very good for DeVos, and redemption, you would think, after losing the win post-race from Fuji. So far on this lap, the advantage in terms of the pace is actually back with DeVos. He's stretched it out by a couple of tenths of a second because he has been setting purple sectors on this lap. And so still he is putting the hammer down. Still has yet to beat Danny Neo's fastest lap of the race so far, and that one wasn't enough to beat it either, despite those purple sectors. So missing a little bit in the middle sector of the lap there. He's just about 1/10 of a second away from Danny Neo's fastest lap. And remember, that is worth 3 extra points.
Of course, this fast lap was not counted because it looks like he may have picked up a 1x somewhere on the track. So there you go, Chris. You jinxed him into at least a 1x there. As Gregory Hovesen 1.4 seconds behind. But here's the thing, too, what was interesting about Neo. You remember how close he was that time when he got the fast lap early on in the race. He was literally tucked under Erdely right there. So I'm not surprised that nobody's able to touch that top lap that Neo has, the 43.167. I don't, unless unless we get a good draft going on, I just don't see it happening. But it's going to take a miracle for more than two cars to hook up to each other at this point, because you take a look, it's 7 seconds back. Richardson is to the Witvoet Woodrow battle, and Cosford Neg battle has Igor Koss about 3.7 seconds back. So everybody kind of gapped out for the time being. An interesting spot with less than 10 to go.
Right, in that case, being a tenth of a second away from Danny Neo's best time does just go to show the form that DeVos is in at the moment, because of course he's got no slipstream in front of him at the moment. So yeah, to be that close to the fastest lap is pretty spectacular, as Witvoet and Woodrow continue to battle on. Witvoet still not able to find the same form that he had at that opening meeting of the season at Silverstone. I'm sure he likes the track, but it's bizarre to see the guy who dominated that first meeting of the season not even inside the top 5 in this one.
Yeah, it's quite interesting to see that, and one has to wonder if the next couple of rounds will have, the time will tell if he can find that stride that he had. But Joop de Vos, and we finally have a battle for position between Cosford and Neg. They're side by side. Neg gets into that 9th spot as Cosford sits back there in 10th. As this draft pack is finally closed in, not too far away, you see Igor Koss. He's finally closing in. So if these two can keep going at each other, I think Igor might be able to work his way into the conversation for the top 10 near the end of this race. That Mustang looking pretty good, running about a little bit faster than Cosford, but a little bit slower than Igor Koss. So it's kind of a 6 1/2, half dozen the other for our 11th place driver.
Has closed down the gap quite significantly to Cody Cosford in front of him. Of course, did just lose that place to Mihai Neg, and once again a swap of position between those two drivers. It seems like that's been the case all race long, but a significant chunk of time taken out of Cody Cosford by Igor Koss there.
And we're hearing there's a slowdown penalty for Pedersen once again on the Le Mans chicane. Same exact portion of that chicane that he got that. So it's going from bad to worse for the number 42. Of course, coming in at second place in the points. He still may have that second place or even the points lead, as Bozga ran into trouble early on. We are past halfway, so everybody on the track right now will earn points for this race, as you see Witvoet going to the inside of Woodrow, keeping him there in 7th place. So this battle for 6 really heating up through the International Horseshoe, and Woodrow is going every which way but sideways to try and make something happen. And Cody Cosford all the way on the back. He's going to pop out to the inside of Mihai Neg for 9th place, and they're going to come down on one another as Mihai shuts the front door on him around turn number 1. And of course, right now, you know what that means? Igor Koss is even closer to joining this battle.
But Jeremy, it's suddenly much closer between the top 2 now. It's now about 0.4 of a second. So that 1.2 second advantage that Joop de Vos had has suddenly disappeared. He may have had a scruffy lap, a 43.9 last time around, but that was still only 0.3 of a second slower than Greg Hovesen. So that explains some of the time loss. I wonder if he's just been pushing slightly too hard out there and making a couple of mistakes, because suddenly it is game on for the lead once again. They've got space to fight. We mentioned that second slowdown penalty for Nikolai Pedersen. That means he's now more than 4 seconds behind these two. They've got space to fight. It's 5 minutes to go in this race, and it's about 0.3 of a second between the top 2.
We're at go time now. Hovesen now has a bigger Porsche up in front of him, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. De Vos, though, getting a little bit of a push through turn number 1 as Hovesen tries to close in and get into that lead. Could De Vos be having to save fuel here near the end? He stopped a lap later, though, but had 2 more seconds, 2 seconds less, I should say, in the pits. So that's going to be interesting to see if that's the case. Woodrow and Witvoet side by side through turn 1. once again, and now they're going back side by side to turn 2. Woodrow's going to have the advantage through the International Horseshoe to the inside. That pink number 44 Corvette has the advantage, takes the position over Witvoet, but Witvoet's not going to let him have it through the kink here. And I got to say this, Chris, this is absolutely fantastic racing as it's tooth and nail for 6th position. The points, the way they're laid out, every position matters here in the Crown Racing Series. A little bit of a touch between the two drivers as they come out of the West Horseshoe, and Witvoet's going to tuck in behind Woodrow.
Well, Ryan Woodrow really had to work hard for that one, didn't he? It was a good 4 or 5 corners worth of effort, but he finally managed to take 6th position in the end there. And another change of position between Cosford and Neg. Going to keep my eye on the lead gap between De Vos and Hovesen, but we're going to see yet another swap here. And that was very early on the brakes for Mihai Neg. I must say, quite a big lift. I wonder if they... Oh, and there was even a touch there as Mihai Neg lit up the rear tyres. And round he went. So the Romanian driver in a little bit of strife. And, oh no, did he get stuck on the curb there? No, what a nightmare. Oh, it's so close between it. It's less than a 1/10 of a second. It must be side by side, surely, for the lead of the race. 2.5 minutes left in this race. So you'd think we're into the last couple of laps now between Joop de Vos and Greg Hovesen fighting over the lead. You mentioned, is he trying to save fuel, Joop de Vos, because he was 2 seconds stationary? Has he miscalculated this potentially?
He might have. As he's holding, he's still holding station, 0.2 of a second lap. But you take a look at the lap times. Yeah, De Vos is 0.2 of a second slower this time by. Let's see what he does in the Western Horseshoe. And he's now having to push because he's got Hovesen on his back bumper here in this penultimate lap. And look at who decided to come into the conversation once again. It's Pedersen, as he has to be careful through the Le Mans chicane, as he's had 2 slowdown penalties as a result. But De Vos able to get out on the gas just a little bit faster coming off of turn number 6. And that's going to be a lot, at least for the start of the oval portion of the lap. But Chris, that second part of the oval part, it's going to be a little tough. You got to get a good run off the chicane.
Well, Pedersen, if he finishes in 3rd position, should still take the championship lead as it stands, with Bozga scoring 0. Even if Joop de Vos does take the win, he's just slightly too far back in terms of the points to take the lead going into the next round at Spa-Francorchamps. But we have just over 1 minute left on the clock. Surely the last lap board is going to be shown. The white flag will be shown to the top 2 now as Joop de Vos leads Greg Hovesen over the start-finish line. There is the white flag, and here comes Hovesen for the lead of the race down the inside into turn 1 on the final lap here. There is the lead change. Hovesen to the front after Joop de Vos had to yield. He's been lifting and coasting like crazy. Maybe a slight miscalculation in terms of his fuel, but the long and short of it is now Hovesen is at the front. Can De Vos do anything about it? Can he keep Pedersen at bay even?
Well, De Vos also getting all close on the International Horseshoe, and Pedersen really closing in as well. So De Vos trying to do all he can to keep Pedersen behind him, dives to the inside, takes a defensive line, De Vos does, but Pedersen cannot get around the number 69 Porsche. There's a couple of other opportunities to make it happen. This is one of them, and everybody still 1, 2, 3. Hovesen, De Vos, Pedersen, Ford, Porsche, Ford as they go around off of turn number 6. And now we'll see if De Vos is going to try his best to stay defensive. And Hovesen doing the snake, doing the defensive line off of NASCAR 2. But Chris, I've got to say, this is going to come down to a close finish.
It certainly is. Now, has De Vos got enough fuel left in the tank to try and defend from Pedersen, who's on the inside going into the Le Mans chicane? And once again, we have a 1-2 between these two friends, these two teammates. And they started 1-2 at the front of the grid. We've had some changes in the middle of the race, but that is how it's going to finish as well. Their tactics, their team play has been played perfectly between these two. Has Pedersen got anything left in the tank to try and sneak the win here from Hovesen? It's closing up dramatically. Here is the checkered flag. He closes up, but it's not going to be enough. Greg Hovesen takes the victory in the Crown Racing Series at Daytona. His first podium, his first victory as well. Extraordinary stuff. Just a 1/10 of a second ahead of Pedersen and de Vos as Balash Erdely came home in 4th. We see Ryan Woodrow just pipping Luciano Witvoet to 6th position as well. But my goodness me, the Crown Racing Series has delivered once again.
Absolutely fantastic as Hovesen's going to try and do a burnout, flash his lights as he is the winner here at Daytona. But man, what a great race as Nikolai Pedersen comes back to finish second after 2 slowdown penalties. de Vos, we thought the 2 seconds was absolutely fantastic for him to get to pounce into the lead. Unfortunately, it was just too little, too late. Highest climber of the race was Igor Kos in 9th place. Danny Neo finishing off in 5th place. And Chris, this was an absolute fantastic race here at the Daytona International Speedway. We saw a lot of the drivers basically play a little bit of defense there, and I think that is one of those races that you need. And hey, like you said, we get to Spa Day here for our next round.
Absolutely extraordinary stuff. And we are back on the 5th of April for Spa-Francorchamps, but extraordinary stuff. Greg Hovesen, who had not finished higher than 7th in the first 2 races of the season, manages to pick up his first victory after a tactical masterclass. And Nikolai Pedersen with 2nd place will be the new championship leader as well after dramas for David Bozga as the last few cars finish their in lap. Extraordinary stuff. de Vos picking up a 2nd consecutive 3rd place finish, and we wondered if this was going to be redemption. He was 6/10 of a second away in the end from that victory. Extraordinary stuff, taking the fight to the Porsches. An awful lot for Claire Cottingham and Ed Spencer to unpack in our post-race show. Remember, that is on a separate stream from this one, but the full results then, it is Greg Hovesen leading Nikolai Pedersen by just over a 1/10 of a second in the end to the line. 6/10 covering the top 3 as de Vos lost the lead on the final lap of the race there. Balash Erdely in 4th position, just missing out on a 3rd podium finish as Danny Neo in 5th. Ryan Woodrow just ahead of Luciano Witvoet. Caden Richardson, Cody Cosford, and Mihai Neg completing the top 10, with Alexander Paulik, Igor Kos, Conrad Kula, Federico Alberti. The last car on the lead lap as Andrea Pagnini a lap down after early contact. Kyle Domark and David Bozga, the championship leader going into this race, not scoring in this one. The championship is going to look exceptionally different, and so we'll say farewell to you on this stream from myself, Chris Stevens, and Jeremy Scott alongside me. Do please join Claire Cottingham and Ed Spencer on our post-race show.